Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. Whispers are getting louder around the league and fans are starting to ask, could it really be true? Von Miller, the future Hall of Famer, the defensive juggernaut with not one but 2 Super Bowl rings to his name, is reportedly taking his talents to the nation's capital. That's right! Rumors are swirling that Miller is signed with the Washington Commanders in what could be one of the most pivotal moves of this NFL offseason. This isn't just another veteran deal. This feels different. This feels like a message that the Commanders aren't playing around. With a defense already brimming with young talent and a front office under pressure to deliver Von's arrival, is being seen as the spark, the catalyst that could reignite a franchise that's long been starved for postseason glory. This Lombardi trophy hasn't called DC home since 1992, but with Miller walking through that door, fans are daring to believe again. They're daring to imagine a new era, one that's no longer defined by rebuilding or false dawns, but by a very real push to return to NFL greatness. And honestly, it might not be as far-fetched as it sounds. Now, let's be clear, nothing in the NFL is guaranteed, not even with a player of Von Miller's pedigree. But when you look at what he brings, the resume, the leadership, the mentality, you start to see why this move has fans buzzing. We're talking about a guy who's been there, done that, and done it again. A Super Bowl MVP, a player who helped lead the Broncos to glory in 2015 and then turned around years later to become a major piece in the Rams' 2021 championship run. This isn't just about numbers. This is about presence, culture, swagger. Von Miller doesn't just play football, he elevates it. And when he enters the locker room, everything changes. The energy shifts, expectations rise. The way players prepare, the way they communicate, the way they believe, it all transforms. For a Commander squad that's been teetering on the edge of playoff relevance, this is exactly the kind of injection they needed. Not a rebuild, not a youth movement, but a seasoned warrior who can guide this team through the grind of the regular season and into the fire of postseason football. There's also the Ron Rivera factor. Say what you will about Rivera's recent record, but the man knows defense. He's coached some of the most fearsome units in the league, and he's been searching for that one X factor, that elite disruptor who can put the fear of God into opposing quarterbacks. Von Miller may be in the twilight of his career, but when healthy, he's still a nightmare off the edge. And in Rivera's system, one that prioritizes discipline, aggression, and versatility, Miller could be unleashed in a way that maximizes every last ounce of his pass rushing wizardry. But this isn't just about sacks, it's about moments. It's about 3rd and long in a tied playoff game with 2 minutes left. And who do you trust to make a play? For the Commanders, it's been a long time since they had that kind of presence on defense. A closer, a tone setter. With Miller, they just might have found him. And in a division where you're facing elite offenses week after week, you need every advantage you can get. Of course, the skeptics are already raising eyebrows. They'll point to Miller's age. He's not the same 24-year-old who tormented Cam Newton in Super Bowl 50. They'll mention his recent injury history, questioning whether he can still handle the rigors of a full NFL season. And hey, those concerns are valid. Nobody's pretending he's in his prime. But championship DNA doesn't fade, experience doesn't rust, and leadership that only sharpens with time. Von Miller might not be chasing down quarterbacks with 4.4 speed anymore, but his instincts, his technique, his sheer will to win, those haven't gone anywhere. If anything, he's evolved. He's smarter, more strategic, more situationally aware. And when it comes to crunch time, when the lights are brightest and the stakes are highest, that's when Von tends to shine. Just ask Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So maybe he's not the answer for the next 10 years. But for the next 2 or 3, with the right rotation, the right game plan, and the right motivation, don't be surprised if Von Miller becomes a weekly problem for NFC East offensive lines. And let's talk about what this means for the young guns on the Commanders' defense. Guys like Jamin Davis, Derek Forrest, and Emmanuel Forbes, they now get to share a locker room with a living legend. That kind of mentorship, you can't quantify it. Von's been through it all. The media hype, the big contracts, the playoff, heartbreaks, the Super Bowl parades. He knows how to handle the pressure, how to stay focused, how to lead without needing a captain's badge. And now he gets to pass all that on. Just imagine what this defense could become with Von Miller setting the tone in practice, holding everyone accountable and pushing them to chase greatness. The ripple effects could be enormous. And let's not forget iron sharpens iron. With Vinay in the mix, expect every other defender to raise their level. Competition breeds excellence, and right now Washington might be building one of the sneakiest, scariest defenses in the league. Meanwhile, the front office deserves some credit. This wasn't a flashy move for the sake of headlines. This was calculated, strategic, a signing that signals intent. The Commanders didn't go chasing big-name receivers or overpriced quarterbacks. They looked at the foundation, looked at their identity, and doubled down on defense. That's how real teams are built. That's how champions are made. Defense wins championships, and in a league that's increasingly offensive, a dominant pass rush remains one of the great equalizers. Von Miller doesn't just bring sacks, he brings disruption. He collapses pockets, forces hurried throws, creates turnovers. And in tight games, that's often the difference between winning and walking off the field in heartbreak. This move says the Commanders aren't content with being plucky underdogs anymore. They want to be feared. They want to be respected. And adding a player like Von, that's how you send a message to the rest of the NFL. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. Let's not overlook the psychological angle either. Von Miller has always been a guy who plays with a chip on his shoulder, and don't think for a second he hasn't heard the whispers. Too old, too slow, too fragile. Players like him thrive on that doubt. They feed off the negativity. And if you think he's coming to Washington just to cash a check and ride into retirement, you haven't been paying attention. Von Miller has pride. He has legacy on the line. He knows what it means to be remembered, and he's not done writing his story. Washington gives him a new chapter, a new mission, and a chance to be the hero once more. For a guy who's already conquered the mountain twice, what better way to cement his legend than by dragging a long dormant franchise back to the promised land? Don't underestimate the power of narrative. In the NFL, stories matter, and Von Miller is about to start writing a new one in burgundy and gold. Now imagine the scene at FedEx Field. It's December, playoff implications in the air, cold breath fogs under the stadium lights. The crowd is rocking. And there's Von Miller, hands in the dirt, eyes locked on the quarterback, ready to explode off the line. That's what this is all about. Creating those moments, building towards something bigger. Von's arrival in Washington isn't just a personnel move. It's an emotional shift, a symbolic gesture. It says the Commanders believe. They believe they can win. They believe they deserve to win, and for the fans who've endured years of false hope and dysfunction, this might be the first time in a long time they feel like the franchise is finally truly turning a corner. That's the power of a signing like this. It reawakens the city, reignites the fire, and if Von can back it up on the field, we might be looking at one of the most impactful signings in recent memory. Maybe not in stats, but in spirit, in identity, in belief. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. There's still work to be done. The offense has to take a leap. The offensive line needs shoring up. Questions remain at quarterback. And the NFC East is no joke. The Eagles, Cowboys, and even the Giants aren't going anywhere. But with Von Miller now anchoring the defense, everything feels a little more possible. The margins get tighter. The belief gets stronger. And in a league where games are often decided by inches, sometimes all it takes is one elite playmaker to tilt the balance. One strip sack, one fourth quarter stop, one leader who refuses to let his team fold. That's what Von brings. Not just talent, but resolve. And if the Commanders can ride that energy, if they can rally around his presence and execute the way we know they can well, suddenly, the idea of seeing the Lombardi trophy hoisted in D.C. doesn't sound so crazy after all. So here we are, Von Miller in Washington, a champion in search of one final conquest, a city desperate to celebrate again, a team on the cusp of something special. Whether you're a believer or a skeptic, one thing's for sure, the NFL just got a whole lot more interesting. The Commanders aren't just hoping anymore, they're moving, they're making noise, they've put the league on notice. And if Von Miller's body can match his mind, if his drive still burns like it did in Denver and LA, then watch out. Because there's something brewing in the capital. Something bold, something real. And maybe, just maybe, when February rolls around, we won't be talking about another NFC East disappointment. We'll be talking about destiny, about defense, about Von. Stay tuned, folks. This story's just getting started. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.